Have you ever met someone who is incredibly kind, always willing to lend a helping hand without expecting anything in return? It could be a close friend, a coworker, a family member, or perhaps even yourself. People who possess a naturally kind and generous heart tend to be warm, empathetic, and genuinely caring toward others. They make an effort to be there for their loved ones, support those in need, and go out of their way to make others feel valued, heard, and appreciated. Their kindness often becomes their defining trait, making them well-liked and cherished by those around them. However, while kindness is undoubtedly a wonderful and admirable quality, there is a fine line between being compassionate and being so selfless that it starts to negatively impact your own well-being. When kindness is taken to an extreme, it can turn into a double-edged sword, one that leads to exhaustion, emotional depletion, and even resentment. If you constantly find yourself feeling drained, struggling to set boundaries, or always putting others' needs above your own, there's a chance that your kindness is becoming self-destructive rather than beneficial. It's important to recognize when your generosity is being taken for granted, or when you're giving so much that it leaves you feeling empty. Being kind should never come at the cost of your own happiness, mental health, or self-worth. If you've ever felt overwhelmed from trying to accommodate everyone around you or guilty for prioritizing yourself, it may be time to take a step back and evaluate whether your kindness is serving you or hurting you. To help you determine whether you might be too kind for your own good. Here are 8 key signs that indicate your selflessness may be crossing the line into self-sacrifice. If these sound familiar, it might be time to establish healthy boundaries and practice self-care without guilt. 1. You always put others' needs before your own. Do you constantly worry about whether others are comfortable, happy, or satisfied, to the point where you completely neglect your own needs? Do you often find yourself making sure everyone else is taken care of while your own well-being is pushed to the bottom of the list? Perhaps you feel obligated to help, support, or be there for others at all times, even when you're physically or emotionally drained. Maybe you hesitate to say no when someone asks for a favor, fearing that you'll let them down or seem selfish. Being kind, generous, and selfless is a wonderful quality, but when it comes at the cost of your own happiness, it can become harmful. Constantly sacrificing your needs for others can lead to exhaustion, stress, and even resentment. Over time, you may start to feel as though your efforts are unappreciated, or that people have come to expect your help without considering how it affects you. Worse yet, when you continuously suppress your own desires, you risk losing touch with yourself, your dreams, your passions, and the things that truly make you happy. It's important to remember that your needs, emotions, and well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's essential. If you don't prioritize your own mental and physical health, you won't have the energy or emotional capacity to genuinely help others in the long run. Learning to set healthy boundaries and giving yourself permission to put yourself first at times doesn't mean you care any less about the people around you. In fact, when you take care of yourself, you become even more capable of supporting others in a meaningful and sustainable way. So, ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized your own happiness without guilt? When did you last do something purely for yourself, without worrying about how it might affect someone else? If it's been too long, it might be time to start treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion that you so freely give to others. 2. You apologize constantly, even when it's not necessary. Apologizing is a sign of politeness, humility, and respect, but when you find yourself saying sorry even when you've done nothing wrong, it may be a reflection of deeper insecurities, self-doubt, or an ingrained fear of upsetting others. While being considerate of people's feelings is important, excessively apologizing, especially for things that don't warrant an apology, can indicate that you feel the need to justify your existence, actions, or even your opinions. Do you find yourself saying sorry for the smallest things like accidentally brushing past someone in a crowded space, expressing your personal preferences, or even asking a question? Do you apologize when declining an invitation, setting a boundary, or asserting yourself in a conversation? If so, you might be subconsciously seeking approval, fearing conflict, or trying to avoid the possibility of being seen as difficult or demanding. Over time, this habit can reinforce feelings of low self-worth, making you believe that your needs, opinions, or presence are somehow an inconvenience to others. But here's the truth. You don't need to apologize for simply existing, for having opinions, for taking up space, or for making choices that align with your well-being. Constantly saying sorry can diminish your confidence and even affect how others perceive you, leading them to believe that you lack self-assurance or that you're always at fault, even when you aren't. 3. You agree to do things you don't really want to do. Do you often find it difficult to say no when someone asks for your help, even if you don't actually want to do it? Have you ever found yourself reluctantly agreeing to a request, only to later feel exhausted, frustrated, or even resentful because you took on more than you could handle? If this sounds familiar, you may have a hard time setting boundaries, perhaps out of fear of disappointing others, avoiding conflict, or worrying that saying no will make you seem selfish or unkind. Being a generous and helpful person is a wonderful quality. But if you constantly agree to things that drain your energy, take up your time, or make you uncomfortable just to keep others happy, you might be prioritizing their needs at the expense of your own well-being. When you always say yes, people may come to expect that you will always accommodate them, which can sometimes lead to being taken for granted or even manipulated. The more you give into every request, the harder it becomes to break the cycle, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed, overcommitted, and emotionally drained. It's important to remember that your time, energy, and mental well-being are just as valuable as anyone else's. You do not have to say yes to everything in order to be a good person. Learning to set boundaries is not about being unkind or unhelpful. It's about knowing your limits and respecting yourself enough to honor them. The next time you feel pressured to agree to something you don't want to do, pause for a moment and ask yourself, do I truly want to do this, or am I just afraid of saying no? If the answer is the latter, remind yourself that declining a request is not a rejection of the person. It's simply a way of protecting your time and energy. If saying no outright feels too difficult at first, try softer but firm responses, such as, I'd love to help, but I'm really busy right now. I appreciate you thinking of me, but I won't be able to take this on. That sounds great, but I need to prioritize my own commitments at the moment. Setting healthy boundaries doesn't mean you care less about others. It simply means you care about yourself too. And the truth is, when you learn to say no when necessary, the yes you give will be more genuine, intentional, and meaningful. 4. You always say yes without thinking it through. Do you often agree to requests without taking a moment to consider whether you truly want to do them? Do you feel pressured to meet others' expectations, even when it disrupts your personal plans, drains your energy, or interferes with your own priorities? Being helpful and accommodating are wonderful traits, but constantly saying yes without careful consideration can lead to overwhelming commitments. When you take on more than you can handle, you risk feeling mentally and physically exhausted. Over time, this can lead to frustration, stress, and even resentment as you realize you have little time left for yourself. Moreover, when people notice that you rarely say no, they may start relying on you more than they should, assuming you will always be available. While they might not mean to take advantage of you, this pattern can gradually turn into an unhealthy dynamic where your needs are constantly pushed aside for the sake of others, before automatically saying yes. Take a step back and ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Do I have the time and energy for it? Will saying yes negatively affect my well-being or personal responsibilities? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, it may be time to practice saying no in a polite and respectful manner. You can decline without offending others by expressing appreciation and offering a reasonable explanation. For example, I'd love to help, but I have a lot on my plate right now. I hope you understand. That sounds like a great project, but I need to focus on my own priorities at the moment. I can't assist this time, but I'd be happy to suggest other ways you can get the help you need. Helping others should be a choice, not an obligation. Setting boundaries is essential to protect your time and energy. Remember, you can't fully support others if you're constantly exhausted yourself. Prioritizing your well-being isn't selfish, it's necessary. 5. Do you avoid expressing your desires? Is it because you fear being judged? Have you ever found it difficult to express what you truly want? Do you worry that asking for too much might make you seem demanding or difficult? If this fear keeps you silent, preventing you from clearly stating your opinions or preferences, over time, those around you may assume that your thoughts don't really matter if you often respond with phrases like, anything is fine, or whatever works. People may get used to not considering your feelings or asking for your input. They might start making decisions without factoring in your desires, which could leave you feeling ignored or unappreciated. Not expressing your thoughts doesn't make you an easygoing or agreeable person in some cases. It can actually diminish your value in the eyes of others. Everyone has the right to their own desires and preferences, and the key is learning how to express them clearly, respectfully, and confidently. 6. Are you trying too hard to be liked? Do you constantly worry about what others think of you? Do you always try to please everyone, even when it exhausts you? If so, you might be letting your need for approval control your life. Wanting to be accepted is natural, but if your self-worth depends entirely on others' opinions, you may lose yourself in the process. Signs of this include always saying yes to requests, fearing disappointment, changing yourself to fit others' expectations, or feeling deeply hurt by criticism. The consequences? You risk being taken advantage of, feeling drained, losing your true identity, and forming superficial relationships. Instead of living to please others, learn to say no. Spend time on what truly matters to you, build confidence from within, and cherish those who appreciate you for who you are. Remember, you don't need to change to be liked. Those who truly matter will value you just as you are. 7. You are afraid of conflict. Do you fear confrontation with others? When someone is upset with you, do you tend to avoid them, hoping that their anger will subside on its own? While no one enjoys arguments, avoiding conflict at all costs can make you more vulnerable in the long run. Constantly sidestepping disagreements may seem like a way to maintain peace, but in reality, it often leads to unresolved issues and bottled up emotions. Over time, this pattern can cause frustration, resentment, and even damage your relationships. When you avoid speaking up for yourself, you may feel unheard, unappreciated, or taken for granted. The truth is, healthy conflict is a natural and necessary part of human interactions. It allows for honest communication, deeper understanding, and personal growth. Instead of fearing confrontation, try approaching it with a calm and rational mindset. Express your thoughts clearly and respectfully, focusing on finding solutions rather than assigning blame. People will appreciate your honesty and ability to handle difficult situations with maturity. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean being aggressive or argumentative. It means valuing your own feelings and perspectives, while also respecting those of others. When you learn to navigate conflict constructively, you build stronger, more authentic relationships and gain the confidence to face challenges head-on. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where you constantly feel obligated to meet the needs of others? Do people frequently turn to you for help, expecting you to be available whenever they need something? Does your to-do list seem endlessly filled with tasks that you didn't actually want to take on? If you often feel drained, overburdened, and as if your own needs are being pushed aside in favor of others, chances are you're being taken advantage of. At first, being the dependable, helpful person in someone's life might feel fulfilling. You might believe that always saying yes strengthens your relationships or makes you more valuable in the eyes of others. However, when your kindness is repeatedly exploited without appreciation, reciprocation, or consideration for your well-being, it becomes an unhealthy dynamic. Over time, this can lead to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of self-identity. It's important to recognize the difference between genuine generosity and being manipulated into constantly prioritizing others at your own expense. Healthy relationships involve mutual respect and balance. You should never feel obligated to give beyond what you're comfortable with. Learning to set boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary for your mental and emotional well-being. If you find it difficult to say no, start small. Practice asserting yourself in situations where your instinct is to agree just to avoid discomfort. Understand that you are not responsible for solving everyone's problems, and it is okay to put yourself first. When you respect your own time and energy, you teach others to do the same. True connections are built on respect, not obligation. By valuing yourself and setting clear boundaries, you'll attract relationships that are healthier, more fulfilling, and rooted in mutual care rather than one-sided expectations. Being a kind person is wonderful, but that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice all your time, energy, and emotions for others. Set healthy boundaries and don't be afraid to say no when necessary. Prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. You deserve happiness just as much as anyone else. Do you often put others' needs before your own? Do you relate to the situations in this video? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear this message.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.